2008. Team of Rivals. Why on earth was I lying on the back seat of a blue minivan with tinted windows? Good question. I was trying to leave my home in Washington, D.C. without being seen by the reporters staked out front. It was the evening of June 5th, 2008, and I was heading to a secret meeting with Barack Obama, and not the one I had hoped for and expected until just a few months earlier. I had lost, and he had won. There hadn't been time yet to come to grips with that reality, but here we were. The presidential primary campaign was historic because of his race and my gender. But it had also been grueling, heated, long, and close. I was disappointed and exhausted. I had campaigned hard to the very end. But Barack had won, and now it was time to support him. The causes and people I had campaigned for, the Americans who had lost jobs and health care, who couldn't afford gas or groceries or college, who had felt invisible to their government for the previous 7 years, now depended on his becoming the 44th President of the United States. This was not going to be easy for me or for my staff and supporters who had given it their all. In fairness, it wasn't going to be easy for Barack and his supporters either. His campaign was as wary of me and my team as we were of them. There had been hot rhetoric and bruised feelings on both sides, and despite a lot of pressure from his backers, I had refused to quit until the last vote was counted. Barack and I had spoken 2 days earlier, late in the evening after the final primaries in Montana and South Dakota. "Let's sit down when it makes sense for you," he said. The next day, we crossed paths backstage at a long-scheduled conference for the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee in Washington. While a bit awkward, it gave our closest aides a chance to begin discussing details about a meeting. For me, that was my traveling chief of staff, Huma Abedin, the savvy, indefatigable, and gracious young woman who had worked for me since my time in the White House. For Obama, it was Reggie Love, the former Duke University basketball player who rarely left Barack's side. Huma and Reggie had kept open a line of communication even during the most intense days of the campaign, a hotline of sorts, in part because after every primary, no matter who won, either Barack or I called the other to concede and offer congratulations. We exchanged calls that were cordial, sometimes even lighthearted, since at least one person on the line had reason to be in a good mood. But more than a few calls were curt, just checking the box. Football coaches meet midfield after a game, but they don't always hug. We needed a place away from the media spotlight to meet and talk. So I called my good friend, Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, to ask if we could use her Washington home. I'd been there before and thought it would work well for us to come and go without drawing attention. The ruse succeeded. I slid around in the van's back seat as we took the sharp left turn at the end of my street onto Massachusetts Avenue, and I was on my way. I got there first. When Barack arrived, Dianne offered us each a glass of California Chardonnay and then left us in her living room, sitting in wing chairs facing each other in front of the fireplace. Despite our clashes over the past year, we had developed a respect for each other rooted in our shared experiences. Running for president is intellectually demanding, emotionally draining, and physically taxing. But crazy as a national campaign can be, it is our democracy in action, warts and all. Seeing that up close helped us appreciate each other for having gotten into the arena, as Theodore Roosevelt called it, and going all the way. By the time of our meeting, I had known Barack for 4 years, 2 of which we spent debating each other. Like many Americans, I was impressed by his speech at the 2004 Democratic National Convention in Boston. Earlier that year, I had supported his Senate campaign by hosting a fundraiser at our home in Washington and attending one in Chicago.